Art, science, and math. So many things exist, but there are so many more ideas for things that don't. What happens to all of those unfulfilled ideas that bounce around inside of our heads? There are a few of us that take the chance and put their ideas out there. Maybe you'll get lucky and find some people who can help make them a reality. This is a story about some brave individuals who tried. This is the Ballad of the Zybourne Clock.
This, my darling, is a device. A device many men and many women have died to see, to understand, and to own. In many ways, it is like one of your toys, but a toy for adults. This, darling, is the Zybourne Clock.
The Zybourne Clock was an idea for a video game that never came to fruition. It was conceptualized by a few users on the Something Awful forums in the year 2003 that gained infamy and notoriety. At the start, there were only 3 people involved, each one taking on a different role in the game's development. One person would make the art, one person would write the script, and one person would program the game. They were idea guys.
What's an idea guy?
I'm glad you asked. An idea guy is a person who formulates an idea but doesn't have the resources or skills required to bring that idea to actualization. Usually the ideas are in a field the idea guy is passionate about. In this case, it's video games. Idea guys run rampant in the video game scene. There's nothing wrong with being an idea guy. In fact, I encourage people to put their ideas out there and learn the skills required to make your idea a reality. Some idea guys expect others to work for them for free or don't have a good roadmap for their project. This is when the idea guy is bad. I like to give real-world examples when I talk about concepts like this. So let me tell you a little story about a big idea guy. This is Elizabeth Holmes. She is the most famous idea guy that I can think of. I'm going to grossly oversimplify her story, so I highly recommend checking out any of the documentaries or YouTube videos about her because it's fascinating. Elizabeth had an amazing idea to miniaturize and speed up blood testing by having machines on site at pharmacies. This could help patients get the care they needed or get diagnosed in a much quicker process than ever before. Companies and beneficiaries contributed money to her company Theranos to make this new technology possible, gaining over $700 million. There was just one problem. The machines didn't actually work, and Elizabeth knew this and still told people they did. She was an idea guy. In fact, her entire career in the medical field is made up of her ideas and finding others to actually do the work for her. She assumed throwing money at the problem would eventually fix it. When the financiers wanted to see results and she couldn't provide them, it all blew up in her face in a very public way, and she ended up getting prosecuted for her crimes. In December 2022, she was sentenced to 12 years in mommy jail. It's obvious Elizabeth was very passionate about the medical field, and I like to imagine she did this with the intention to help millions. But you can't help people if you don't know how. Obviously, that's a bit of an extreme example, and on a much larger scale than the Zybourne Clock, which never received any real funding, and its time in the spotlight was mostly for mockery. It never left the conceptual phase and stuck only to concepts, artwork, and most importantly, ideas. The Zybourne Clock started out as a post between a few people on a forum called Something Awful, a place I would consider to be an important and controversial part of internet history. A small group of individuals who only knew each other online in the forum started messaging each other talking about how cool it would be to make a video game. They put together a design document, came up with characters, concepts, and artwork, and posted the pitch on the forum, hoping some users would be blown away and volunteer their skills to help make the Zybourne Clock a reality. This did not go as planned. If Something Awful's name didn't give it away, the forums could cater to a toxic crowd. It was immediately criticized for the poor artwork, and people accused the 3 of trying to get free labor on a project they had no intention of actually working on. People made fan art gently teasing the project, making fun of the convoluted story and gameplay. This was all taking place during 2003, and at the time, there wasn't really a widespread word for it yet, but Zybourne Clock was kinda turning into a meme. I want to tell my favorite story about the development of the Zybourne Clock. Apparently, someone who volunteered to work on the game actually had game dev experience. They ended up getting banned from working on it after offering constructive criticism to make the game better. They only gave themselves a year deadline to have the game 100% complete. Myself being an outsider looking in with no game dev experience, I can confidently say that with that attitude, they were setting themselves up for a massive failure. I don't know how archiving posts works on something awful. I never actually went to that website back in the day. I got my Zybourne Clock fill from a website called YTMND.
You're the man now, dog.
So I don't know the ins and outs of the forum, but it looks like you can't access the original post from the search bar. I did find a website that has them all in text format, but some of the images were unsupported at the time I was making this video, and I hope that those can get fixed someday. I put the link in the description, and I highly recommend checking that out if you want to see any of this for yourself. My love for the Zybourne Clock spawned in 2008 when I saw the trailer I showed at the beginning of this video. That trailer was not made by anyone involved with the original post, by the way. Actually, a lot of the images and footage I have been and will be using in this video are not created by the original team, but by people making it ironically. I don't think it was out of a place of meanness or hate. I think it's usually all in good fun, and it kept the Zybourne Clock in the public conscious longer. The Zybourne Clock was going to be a turn-based RPG set in a steampunk world with a heavy emphasis on time travel. For this next section, I've divided the video up into 3 parts: the characters, the concepts, and the artwork. This is Johnny Five Aces. He's a badass hero who also cheats at cards. I think the concept for Johnny was that he always had an ace up his sleeve, but the name implication to me is that instead of just 1 ace, he actually has 5 aces up his sleeve, which is a lot of aces, and I feel like you'd get caught easier. But I guess that's what makes him cool. In the concepts and fan art, he is shown to have glasses, a neat mustache, and he's dressed in a suit with a scarf and an ace in his hand. This is Schultz, Johnny's traveling companion. He carries around a large, unwieldy camera obscura. Johnny and Schultz set out on an adventure to solve the mystery of the Zybourne Clock. I assume there would be more characters appearing in the game, more on that later, that would accompany them on their adventure. Based on the design document, there were some villains, one named Silas and another one named Alex. Here are some of their official dialogue. Silas removes his ear from the door and turns to Alex. Watch me work.
You always had a penchant for the dramatic.
Silas slips on what looks like a brass knuckle and lunges for the door. Right as his knuckle is about to connect, a blue light shoots out of it, disintegrating the door.
Come on, haven't you ever heard of stealth?
Nope. The Zybourne Clock would have presented a unique take on the concept of time traveling. I'm going to read the exact text from the original post because I think it's very interesting, and the visual they describe will become important later on in the video. Let me know if you understand this. Imagine 4 balls on the edge of a cliff. Say a direct copy of the ball nearest the cliff is sent to the back of the line of balls and takes place of the first ball. The formerly first ball becomes the second becomes the third, and the fourth falls off the cliff. Time works the same way. Okay, I think I get it. So if you time travel, you are replacing things that already happened? Or things that might happen? I don't know. I think this needs to be workshopped just a little bit more. Combat would be turn-based, but featured something called mood skills. Enemies would have different reactions to different moods that were present in a battle. In the design document, they listed 3 sets containing 2 moods each that act like a gradient. So for instance, you could enter a battle with a happy mood, but depending on what skills you choose, it could deplete to a sad mood as the battle went on. This sounds neat, I guess, but it's overly complicated. Games like Earthbound and more recently Omori did something similar, but it was really well thought out and tested to make sure it works. The Zybourne Clock adopts a steampunk aesthetic. I got some bad news. I'm not really a huge fan of steampunk. Listen, I'm sorry, okay? I think in theory, steampunk is neat, but oftentimes in execution, I think it falls short. Royalty-free steampunk music. Okay, yeah, that's good. All right. So a lot of the time when I see steampunk, it's get a top hat, glue some cogs on it. Get some goggles, glue some cogs on it. Get a vest, glue some cogs on it. Get a blimp, glue some cogs on it. Style over substance. I think I'd like the steampunk aesthetic more if it was about the practicality of how it's able to work. I'm sure there are some great examples of this, and I'd appreciate if you left them in the comments so I can check them out. The original artwork is very rudimentary, but I don't mind that. It's very rough and unfinished, but they were just concept art. Some people might find them cringe, but I see a young artist trying their best to make game concept drawings. The fan art that exists of the Zybourne Clock is incredible. There are too many exciting ones to really have a favorite. They lean heavily into the cool, nonchalant attitude that Johnny Five Aces has. He's always doing extreme things while never breaking that calm and collected outward appearance. Within the last few years, the original artists actually came forward after their mother found the old official drawings while cleaning their house. They ended up on eBay and were sold for a decent $5,100 to longtime YouTuber and special effects expert Freddie Wong. In those found artworks, there was actually a character we had never seen before, Groz Gammon, who looks like Carl from Aqua Teen. I imagine this would be a party member that joins the team later on in the game. Freddie was very interested in preserving the drawings, claiming them to be artwork and important parts of internet culture and history. And I agree with him 100%. I'm glad they ended up in the hands of someone who truly appreciates them for what they are. In Fallout New Vegas, when you start the game and after you've made your character, you're allowed to choose perks that can change up the game. Some benefit you in combat or skills, but my favorite is Wild Wasteland. This perk doesn't do anything except add fun Easter eggs all over the map. If you head south of the starting area Good Springs to Good Springs Source, you'll come across a campsite on top of a cliff. Hey, wait a minute. Those orange balls on the cliff? Those aces on the table? There's 5 of them. Johnny's lifeless body? I can't believe what I'm seeing here. There's a Zybourne Clock reference in Fallout New Vegas? I remember seeing this for the first time forever ago and having my mind blown. As the years have gone on, the Zybourne Clock has faded into obscurity and out of the public eye. That Easter egg in Fallout New Vegas is the most mainstream it ever got as far as I'm aware. I think it's awesome the developers of New Vegas snuck that in. Okay, I have a confession. When I was younger in the early 2010s, I actually wanted to make a video about the Zybourne Clock. I didn't have the skills or equipment back then to make that happen, so it was just an idea for a really long time. Over the years, I've taught myself how to edit, increased my self-confidence, and I obtained the stuff I needed to make this work. It might not be perfect, and really nothing is. I'm just glad I finally made this video. Whether it's a game, a video, a recipe, whatever your idea is that you're passionate about, I hope you get out there one day and make it real. There is only so much time, and the clock is already ticking. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is about an obscure topic, so consider liking it or subscribing to my channel to help it in the algorithm. You might like one of these other videos I've made too. Leave a comment about an idea you want to make real. See you soon.